to thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. I've addressed the Indo-Caribbean community many times since the year 2000 when I went to Trinidad for a conference, and then I went back a couple of times after that, and also in New York and various other places. When you're talking about questions of being different, the Caribbean people have done a very good job of wanting to retain their difference. They've worked very hard at it, not to get digested into other identities and lose who they are. And being digested is sort of like somebody eats a meal. You eat a tiger eats a deer or something, or you eat some meal, and then that food is gone. It's not there anymore, and it's part of the DNA of the person who's eaten it. And the person who's eaten it becomes stronger and becomes more powerful as a result of eating that food, but the food doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't have its own separate identity and its separate existence. Now this metaphor works for civilizations, which is what I'm doing in this book. Civilizations have been digested and made to disappear. You see all these pre-Christian so-called pagans used to be a thriving large civilization across Europe, and Christianity digested them. So a lot of things entered Christianity from the pagans, like the Christmas tree and Easter and many festivals and symbols. But the pagans themselves disappeared. You find them in some museums. Also Native Americans, they got digested. Many good things were taken from them, and they exist in museums or reservations. A lot of good things were taken from Africans, Egyptians, and nowadays Tibetan culture is being digested into Chinese civilization. So the question is, is the Indian civilization, the Dharmic civilization, being digested and made part of Western civilization, like yoga, like meditation, like all kinds of things are being digested. And after the good things are digested, the tiger throws out, excretes what it doesn't need from the deer. So whatever it doesn't belong, it removes it. So are we heading in that direction gradually? And if so, what are the implications and what do we do about it? So many of our people are very enthusiastic. They think that it's a sign of victory that I'm being accepted by white Christian culture, that I'm being accepted by them, so I must be good now, because previously they rejected me. So we are considering our value based on what somebody else thinks of us, rather than having our own sense of value. So if my worthiness in my own eyes, my self-esteem depends on somebody else and their attitude towards me, then I'm already a prisoner. I'm already a prisoner. And they can ignore me and I'll feel bad. They can respect me or recognize me and I will love it. So my mood will go up and down based on what somebody else is thinking. So we have that kind of a complex. That's an inferiority complex that a lot of our people have. And the result of inferiority complex is that there's a tendency to want to get digested. There's a tendency to want to get digested. Now, one would say, what is wrong if others take our good things? And there's nothing wrong at all. Digestion is different than simply borrowing. If I borrow something from you, I borrow your music, I'm not depriving you, I'm not distorting it, I'm not in any way separating it from you. You can also have it. And I respect it as yours, I acknowledge it is yours, and I'm borrowing it. That's borrowing, that's cross-cultural borrowing. But digestion means that something is separated and removed from its origin. It's no longer part of the source civilization. History is rewritten to give a different idea of where it came from. So the original source tradition, over a period of some generations, the people begin to not even know that this came from there. For instance, a lot of mathematics came from India, and the Arabs translated these texts and then it went to Europe. But Indians don't know that. So that is an example of something that it is not just a simple matter of Europeans borrowing it, but Indians themselves losing track of that memory. A lot of yoga is becoming Christian yoga and is being re-exported to India. A lot of Christian yoga centers starting in India, a lot of Christian Bharatnatyam starting in India, story of Jesus and Mary and all that, danced in the Indian way, wearing Indian costumes, Indian music. So it is not just simply borrowing, but the one who is borrowing is so powerful, has so much money, can spread so many academies of dance and so many academies of yoga, teach so many, hire so many teachers, that their digested version, their westernized version becomes universal. So even Indians learn them about their own heritage through the echo of the West. What the West teaches them is what they learn. So this is how there was this Aryan theory created that Indians accepted. Group of Germans started this, and my other book, being Breaking India, explains this in very great detail, the history of how it happened. Created an Aryan identity, created a Dravidian identity in the 1800s. Before that, people in India didn't have that kind of a sense of that kind of dualistic identity, separatist identity. And it became so powerful and it became so digested by Western thought as part of history, as part of their history. Then because of their power, because of the English language, because of their control over education and media and jobs, they exported this idea of the Aryan-Dravidian divide to Indians, and Indians accepted it as truth. So the problem came when Indians even lost their own itihas, their own sources, their own authority. And today, a lot of the digestion is in the form of translating some Sanskrit words into English where they have a different meaning. If you take a word which captures a very unique meaning in Sanskrit, that meaning is not found in another language, like Shakti. There is nothing like Shakti in the Western thought, so they have no word for it. Like Atma in the Indian thought is not the same as soul in the Western thought. You know, as I was explaining earlier, soul don't exist in animals, soul don't exist in plants, soul doesn't have reincarnation. You know, it's a different concept than Atma. So if you replace the word Atma with soul, actually it's a distortion. So if you take several such ideas we have, several such philosophical concepts we have, words we have, and substitute them, digest them into the West and replace them with Western equivalents, it is a distortion. So the original entity has been eaten up as food and made to disappear, and the Western universalism, which is the one that has absorbed all this and eaten it up, has become stronger. And this is the issue that I am addressing in this book. I am addressing this issue of Western universalism is only one kind of universalism. Chinese claim to have their own universalism. Their Confucian thought is their idea of universalism. There is Islamic universalism, where the Islamic thought claims to have universal truth. So there are many alternative claims of universalism, and even in the West there are alternative claims. There is the Judeo-Christian religious idea of universalism, and then the Enlightened movement, secularism, they have their own idea of universalism, and so on. So there are many competing views, and each one claims to be universally true. But why Western universalism is particularly important is because they got the power through the language, through the colonization, through money, through institutions that they have set up, through opportunities that they can offer. So their idea of universalism has got more market share, if you will, than somebody else's idea of universalism. So my primary focus is to see how our civilization differs, what is different about it from Western universalism, what should we not allow to get digested, that we should keep separate. What is it, what are the distinct qualities based on which we should create our identity? We can share a lot of things are common, but certain things we should keep distinct to ourselves, because this is what makes us separate, and we can ask others to borrow them, but they should acknowledge it. And how it is to be interpreted should be in our hands, not in somebody else's hands. They are not the gurus who are going to teach us yoga. We have to understand it ourselves. They are not the people who are going to teach us Bharatnatyam. They are not the people who are going to teach us what is meaning of Shakti or what is our philosophy. So when we lose control over our own knowledge systems, then instead of being the experts, instead of having the adhikar, instead of having the authority, we become dependent on someone else to teach us even about ourselves. And this is a tragedy that has happened quite a lot. We used to be an exporter of knowledge. We had the greatest universities in Takshashila, which is now in Pakistan, and Nalanda, which is in Bihar, and 20, 30 other major universities. They were like the Ivy Leagues of that time. And the brightest students were sent from around the world to come and study there. And this went on for thousands of years. And we were not importing know-how and importing knowledge, technology, R&D. We were exporting. We were knowledge exporters in so many areas: philosophy, science, metallurgy, city building, medicine, linguistics, music, all kinds of things. The knowledge system from India was exported everywhere in the world: mathematics, astronomy. And today, we are like beggars going around trying to get knowledge from the West and bring it back. So how is it that people who were world-class exporters become the biggest importers? And now, previously the pride was that everybody uses my knowledge, I am exporting, they come to me for knowledge. Now we are very proud that we also got Starbucks, big headline, we are very good, we got Starbucks, headline. And we got such and such brand now, we are good. They must think we are important. They've started this franchise here like that. So the terms of reference in which we are defining our success are not our own terms of reference. Somebody else's terms of reference we want to mimic, we want to be like others, and so we have in a sense sold out a sense of who we are as distinct people. Yeah? So the book talks about the idea of Western universalism, I mentioned. Then it talks about the idea of what is difference. Difference is a very basic concept in the whole universe. Different animals, different plants, different climates, different geographical areas, different human DNAs, different cultures, different languages. So difference is everywhere. There's nothing wrong in difference. Difference is to be celebrated. So it explains the importance of difference and why we should not try to just give up our difference. And then it gives a problem of digestion, being digested. A lot of Indians want to be digested because they have an inferiority complex. And the West wants to digest us because it has a superiority complex. So the one who thinks is superior says, I'm superior, you should become like me. And I'm helping you to become like me and to get rid of your own self. And the one who's got an inferiority complex says, I want to be like you and give up who I am. And so we suffer the inferiority complex, a large number of our people. And in fact, so many people, when I tell them about my book being different, they say, Rajiv ji, you should write a book being same. Why you want to be different? We're all same. Even yesterday, the mandir, somebody asked me a question, so I had to give a long answer. And if people ask me, I'll be happy to give you long answers. So the book then gives you very specific philosophical differences. It is not enough to say I'm different because I eat spicy food, because it's not really, there's nothing preventing anybody from eating spicy food. Or I take off my shoes and come, because you can, nowadays they have churches in India where they take off the shoes, they have agarbatti, they have arti to Jesus, their priest wears saffron, they sit cross-legged on the floor, and they eat prasad, they're given food and they call it prasad, they eat on a banana leaf. So all that they can do, the priest can even come in a dhoti. So all this goes on, and that doesn't really affect them from their solid idea of the unique history of Jesus and everything else is false. It doesn't prevent them. They just can copy all these symbols very superficially. And our people feel very happy thinking that the problem is solved. Because our people are so naive and ignorant about what constitutes our dharma. They think dharma consists of these superficial things. And these superficial things are just pop culture. And they are just symbolic, gestures. So anyone can adopt these. There's nothing very unique or distinct about them. They're nice, but they're just pop culture. So Bollywood and cricket is not the sense of who we are. Okay? So these are all part of culture. We have to understand philosophically certain ideas which are in our dharma which comprise like the backbone of our Dharma, which cannot be digested into Western thought, cannot be, because their ideas are such that they are not willing to accept those. Those things which are unacceptable to them, indigestible by them, are the ones we should understand. Because it is two things. First, exceedingly strong and powerful foundation for who we are, and second, not acceptable by the other. Now, if the other wants to digest us, what do they have to do to these things? They have to eliminate them. They have to distort them. They have to replace them with something of their own. Because they can't be digested. So if you're eating something and one part of it can't be digested, then you have to remove it somehow. Or you have to transform it before you eat it. Otherwise it's poisonous to you. So this is why it's very important to understand what we must not allow to be transformed, what we must preserve, what we must retain. And those distinctiveness, that kind of distinctiveness is the story in this book, Being Different. Chapters 2, 3, 4 and 5 are each talking about one big area of difference. And so there's 4 big kinds of differences with a lot of examples inside. And if you can catch even one of those 4, it'll change your way of thinking. It'll change your whole outlook on who we are and what must we protect and preserve and why and so on. So that's my humble kind of introduction to this book. And I thought what I should do is, rather than give a long talk, maybe turn it into an interactive session and invite you to come here for the recording purposes and ask your question, and then I'll give an answer. This way we'll have more time for Q&A. I think the Q&A yesterday was very exciting. So if we can have more questions, answer time, it will actually be very good. So thank you, and I invite you now to please ask your questions.
So I know you had mentioned that you visited the island of Trinidad. What, in your opinion, did the population there possess to sort of make them want to maintain their identity? Not just there, but in Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname. And what is different there than what's different here in Canada? Because I think that our foreparents who were there in Trinidad versus what we have today here in Canada is night and day. I find some of the young people, not all, some of the young people don't really care to maintain that rich history. So what in your opinion is different from that society versus present time?
Good question. Okay, this is a very good question. My sense is that the people in the Caribbean I met, their idea of difference, their idea of being different, was not deep enough. I didn't feel that they had studied enough, had enough knowledge, and I feel that's the responsibility of the academic people who are of Indian origin and the religious leaders and the political leaders, because if they understand, then they can teach others. So the difference was more symbolic, and gee, I am a Hindu, I've got a Hindu name, and maybe I go to a certain house of worship and I call myself Hindu. It's more like what I call myself, but I would have wanted them to understand the basic foundations more deeply. The reason why I feel that a lot of people in the Caribbean were hanging on to Indian identity and Indian distinctiveness, I felt, was because the history of all the trauma that they had to go through. In order to survive that, they needed to preserve who they are, their sense of continuity, and unlike the blacks who became Christians, the Hindus could remain Hindu. So I think the idea of we are Hindu also became synonymous with we are Indian. And so we are not black. We are not black, and so non-blackness became known as Hindu, is my sense. A lot of being Hindu became a matter of not wanting to be mixed up as black, not wanting to be confused as black. So the nature of the other determined the kind of defense mechanism of defining who we are. In Canada, you don't have that same other. You don't have a large black Christian population against which you have to define your distinctiveness. You have a predominantly white, Judeo-Christian background. So the issue is different now. The issue here is different. And I think ethnicity and race in the Caribbean got mixed up with the idea of Hindu. And so Hindu became a kind of an ethnic construct rather than necessarily a certain philosophical worldview, spiritual kind of a construct. So the focus on understanding its philosophical depth was not that much. It is also that the Hinduism is not so simple. And if you are oppressed people, you don't have access to great teachers, and you don't have universities and learnings and pathshalas and all that you don't have. So to some extent it's the traumatic history of the Indian Hindus in the Caribbean that made it very difficult to have a deep knowledge of Hinduism. Whereas blacks had the advantage because being Christian, the church from North America could feed them and fund them and send teachers, so they didn't have to create new knowledge and understanding through their own meditation and through their own practice. They were connected with the mother country or mother Christian countries that would look after them. Whereas I think the mother Hindu country didn't really look after the people in the Caribbean in the same way. To some extent couldn't, because it was also colonized. So if India had been a great power and right in the neighborhood of the Caribbean like North America is, and Indians had a great lot of institutions of Hindu thought, then they could have looked after the Caribbeans in the same way. But so the Caribbeans, it was a combination of all these factors that they faced a sort of an other group other than themselves, with different ethnicity and different religion, and that other group very well nurtured and supported by big churches and thinkers and education systems funded from Western countries, whereas they had none of these things. So it's quite remarkable that they were able to achieve what they were able to achieve. So I'm not diminishing that in any way, trivializing that. It was a very big achievement. When they came to Canada and other places, then that pressure to be different from the others was not there. The pressure turned into, okay, we are the immigrants, and now the home turf advantage is to the people who've been here much before us. So the burden is on me to become like them. The burden is on me when I go looking for a job to have an accent like them, to be less different. They won't accept me, they'll ask me more questions if they think I'm from somewhere else. Maybe my background and degree won't count as much as theirs. So maybe I should start giving up who I am in the way I dress, in the way I talk and all that, because I have to impress somebody else, and it's on their terms that I have to impress them. So I feel that when the immigrants came, and they continue coming, they are dislocated from that secure area that they have created in the Caribbean, where there is now support. There are at least numbers, and there is a continuity of 3-4 generations. They've created an identity. When they come here, it's sort of like free for all. They have to go out on their own and do whatever. So therefore, the tendency is to want to get digested. The tendency in the Caribbean was not to want to get digested into mainstream black Christian culture. But here the tendency is to want to get digested into mainstream white Judeo-Christian culture. So the pressures and the challenges to keep on track, to keep the difference preserved and appreciated, is a different kind of challenge. Now I'll also tell you there are more opportunities also. There are more challenges here, but more opportunities. The Canadian government is very multicultural. They give funds. That's why there are temples. But most temples I go to do not have a serious learning program. They are not temples of learning. They are temples of ritual, which is fine. You need that. You need symbols, you need rituals, you need emotions, you need psychological apparatus. All that is very, very important. But you also need very knowledgeable people who can relate it to modern life, who can, for example, give you a lecture on the Hindu origins of environmentalism in the West. A lot of environmentalism in the West came from India. A lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas about animal rights came from people Europeans who went and studied in India. In the colonial era, they introduced notions of vegetarianism, became very fashionable in Europe from India, from the colonialists who went back. So large parts of what we call Western culture is the digestion of Indian culture. That's why we ought to understand the history of how we've been digested and be able to claim those things. If we can claim those things, then our youth will not think that we are obsolete, we are old-fashioned, we belong to some past era, it's nostalgia, it's chauvinism. They will think that it is relevant for today, because even Westerners are using these things. We must understand the history of scientific contributions that came from India. Now my foundation we started a project of 20 volumes on history of Indian science and technology. We've published 9. 5 of them we have in Princeton, and Will Charan has a set with him, and the other 4 I have to get from India. So this has taken me like 12 years to get these 9 out. We want to get some more out. And each volume is on a different topic, like metallurgy or Harappan cities or ancient technology, engineering technology, or medicine or water harvesting or things like that. So the purpose is to show to learned Indians that our civilization has produced a lot of good stuff, and to reconnect with that civilization, we can probably tap into that knowledge and do some good things today. So I would say that the kind of work I'm doing relates to the challenges facing people of Indian origin and Caribbean origin in Canada, in the sense that it tells you reasons for being reconnected, how to be reconnected, how to explain who we are to others, to our own people also. Yeah. Now, I don't have the time, health, energy left, and age left, and all that to go around and explain it to millions of people. All I can do is do my work as a researcher and writer. And then it is for other thinkers and teachers and speakers to pick up these ideas and spread them further. So my hope is that temples will each create a program of education. It's one thing to have Bal Vihar, which is very important, young kids, but for mature adults who leave the home and are very vulnerable because they are facing the outside world where they're being told weird things, they're being made fun of, and they don't know how to answer it because they don't have knowledge. So it's not enough to just attend one talk. You need a whole program of learning. And over a period of 6 months, become strong so you can talk back, you can answer back. And what I invite you to do is, if you go to beingdifferentbook.com, I have about 150 or more videos now of various talks, Q&A. The talks are on many, many topics, and each Q&A session is very different because each audience is different, they ask different Q&A. So you could spend a very large number of time. You could spend 50 hours, 75 hours. Every day you could spend a half an hour, 1 hour, whatever, listen to watch one video. And over a period of time, you will get a lot of knowledge. And you can then read, while be watching, you can also be reading some material from the book. And the two together will give you a program of educating yourself without depending on anybody. And hopefully leaders of temples, administrative leaders of temples, will take up seriously this issue of the intellectual dimension of our civilization. And then be able to respond to the challenges that our young people are facing. Otherwise, the first generation with a lot of nostalgia and a lot of passion will fund and build all these big infrastructure, and then when they are gone, the next generation will not bother. I mean, they will not have any use for it. And so it will be a waste. And I see that possibility in North America.
I see it as well.
Yeah. Okay, more questions, please.
2 questions. For one, I would like to say that we must thank our foreparents in the Caribbean for not being digested. To what extent the knowledge, from your knowledge, if you can let us know, to what extent that, or to what degree that knowledge was distorted? Because we must thank them for maintaining our Dharma. It is because of that that we are here today. Now, we have moved from one environment to another environment. And the challenges that are facing the people, the Hindus in 21st century, are still there. In fact, they have increased, especially in a multicultural society like this. But what I think is, as long as we can recognize that the basic facets of Hinduism, things like love, compassion, peace, forgiveness, non-stealing and so on, the very core of Hinduism, as long as we can recognize that, and that is what we're trying to do. And what, from your knowledge, sir, if you can highlight us on, besides learning the language itself, because you said a number of things are, and I agree with you, we use terms when we explain to our listeners that kind of will help them to understand what the word means, like you said, Atma and so on. But really some words can't be translated from Sanskrit to English. Besides learning the language itself, what are some of your other ideas you think we can institute here? Because we do have a Bal Vihar class here for children and for young adults and so on. So I'd be grateful if you can touch on some of those.
You said two questions, so that's one.
Yeah.
That's one question. Your second question?
Well, the first one was, we must thank them and to what degree that was distorted.
Okay.
Like, from what you have seen, like in Trinidad, I don't know if you've been to Guyana.
No.
But I think it's a similar kind of thing, to what degree that was distorted from what was done. So we don't want to know that we have lost our identity. So as we think we have maintained our identity, because that is what we need to have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Those are good questions. I don't think in Trinidad I noticed a problem of distortion, but I noticed a problem of a very small subset being preserved. So if there's 100 things and 20 are preserved, the 80 are not there, the deeper knowledge is not there. But the 20 which are preserved are pretty accurate. So it's not that that what you are doing is wrong, but I'm saying that more needs to be done. So it's an incompleteness. And as I said, when you go under hardships halfway around the world, you're relocated and you're struggling and all that, and your whole support base is gone, economic sustenance is gone, your leadership is not there, you have a huge period of discontinuity. So it's quite remarkable that even a large subset of the culture was saved. Yeah, that is quite remarkable. Now, what you need to do, if learning the language is not easy for adults, you could start Hindi classes for young people. In New Jersey, Gulcharan was there, one man, Devendra Singh, started something called Hindi USA, alone, about 10-15 years ago, just brought some volunteer teachers to teach his own kids, and then he got enough people to attend, enough kids to attend. He started second school, third school, and he has an annual kind of a festival of Hindi speaking, Hindi poetry, Hindi drama, all that, awards are given. Now he has 22 schools, 4,000 students, 100 to 150 teachers in these schools. Now that's a very big deal, one guy has done. So his idea is that you don't worry about adults, just start with kids, start with the next generation. Besides that, certain words you can introduce, certain Sanskrit words you can learn and make them part of your English vocabulary. So for example, if you have the word yoga, you're not calling it exercise and you're not calling it gymnastics and you're not calling it prayer, you're calling it yoga. So you're making it part of the English language. So you could also make Atman part of the English language by understanding what it means and use it. And when somebody asks soul, you can say, no, soul is a different idea, fine, I respect it, that's a different concept, Atman is a different concept, explain what's different. Animals have Atman, plants have Atman, the whole cosmos, where soul only human beings have. Soul lives only once, there's no reincarnation, rebirth, doesn't have karma. Atman is based on the principle of karma, reincarnation and so on. So you must have the knowledge of a word. You don't need to learn all of Sanskrit. If you can, it's perfect. But if you cannot, don't give up. The next best thing is learn. I have in this book, in chapter 5, explained 20 words in about 100 pages. What I would like you to do is, out of those 20 words, pick one word every week. Just understand that one word. Just read those 5-6 pages, 3-4 times. Understand what that one word means. Like why Dharma is different than religion. It's important to understand. It's a very amazing concept, Dharma. And it's not the same thing as religion. Religion is a sort of small subset of Dharma. Because Dharma is also your duties and your ethics towards animals, towards nature, towards society, towards family, towards community, towards your body. You have many, many dharmas. It's not just for God. It's all dharma is all a lot of things in it. So when you take a word out of that list of 20 odd words, and each week you pick one and you study it, and then you go to the net and read more about it, and read it on your own and practice it on people, try to talk about it. I think in several weeks you begin to feel empowered, is my experience with people. If you begin to learn these words, you will begin to feel empowered. You don't need to know all of Sanskrit. You can learn Shakti, and you can learn what Shakti is. And you can understand Shakti, what it is, why it's important, where is Shakti. And so, this is a kind of an alternative, is a more practical alternative to learning the whole language, which for grown-ups won't be easy. Besides this, I explain, like in chapter 2, I explain why in the Abrahamic religions the history of prophets is 100% what matters, because you do not have the capability to raise your consciousness now through any means and get that experience which the rishis had in our culture. You cannot, in Christianity, you cannot have the Jesus experience. In Judaism, you cannot have the Moses experience. In Islam, you cannot have the Muhammad experience. You have to depend on what they said in history. But in our case, an advanced yogi, an advanced meditator has the rishi experience now. So the dependence on history is less because of that. So these points need to be understood for our own kids to know what is distinct about us that is not shared by other faiths. And once we know what is distinct about us, then we need to know what is good about that. Why it is wonderful, why this distinction is not just preserved for the sake of being different. We're not saying be different for the sake of it. We're saying there's some value in it. And then once you understood what is different and why this is better, or why it has some merit, maybe others have their benefits also, then you are on a strong footing to deal with others in cross-cultural dialogue. So I would say that the most important thing for us to know is how to be ourselves, be different, not run away from it, not just in front of others of our own kind, but in the mainstream, how to explain who we are with great confidence. And I have no shame to explain how I am, who I am, because I am so confident that I can answer their questions. I can really give it back if I have to. If there's a big argument, I can give it back if I have to. Kulcharan has seen me do that a couple of times. When I was here at the University of Toronto, we had some fun. You need to do that practice. So you need to create voices like that. You need to create leaders like that. I can help. I can help if somebody were to say, okay, we're going to sponsor 2-3 young people to be your assistants and to learn and be your apprentices. And like there is an internship program some people sponsor. So we'll sponsor an internship program. I can nurture these people. But they have to be very serious. They have to be very serious. They're willing to work hard. They have to be, determined. It should not be some little casual thing and they run away, after, you get them to do something tough. So we need some determined, hard-working, motivated, high potential scholars, and then mentors who can nurture them. Because if the community could get even a few, if you could get just a small number, 2-3 of such people within the community, and this is their job, then they can multiply that big time. So that's how I would do it.
This is just a follow-up to the point. How do you motivate people to want to learn? Because I think that's the biggest challenge. Because I find here that we could announce, if you were here on say the Saturday, and we could announce 2 months in advance, but that urge to want to be here is something that I think is the biggest challenge. I don't know if there's any solution, or do we just keep on hammering the same point over and over? I don't know if you've faced this problem
everywhere
before. Thank you.
So this is a dilemma that's not unique to Indo-Caribbeans. Indians in general, Hindu origin, have this problem. Because the parents are very busy making money and getting settled in their jobs and careers and so on. And the kids are pushed into, get into this or that, profession to do well for yourself. So the idea of spirituality and our background and heritage and all of that becomes sort of an extracurricular as time permits, if time permits, and then there is no time that permits, It's the parents who are sort of wishing that maybe somehow things will get taken care of, and then they are not, then they hand over to the teacher, then they hand over to the professor, then they hand over to the society, and they kind of abrogating their own responsibility. I was explaining in the car when I was coming that our people have outsourced their heritage transmission, outsourced it to somebody or other. Somebody else will do it. It's like having your kids raised by Nintendo or by a TV, this sort of thing. So it's very difficult. People constantly telling me, you do all the work, we will clap for you. We will sit and clap. We'll write some email saying, great, great, great. And I wonder, why aren't you doing more than that? So taking the back seat and hoping someone else will solve the problem for us has become a habit. It's laziness. In our tradition, it's called tamas. It's a very sloth, inertia, incompetence, useless kind of. So part of a slavish mentality is that. And if you are a slave owner or you're a boss or you're a colonizer, you don't want very smart people, there under you because they may outsmart you. You want them to work hard, not be too creative, not ask too many questions. You want them to lack leadership skills because leader is dangerous guy. There is this, which was that movie, Schindler's List. Did you watch the movie Schindler's List? That's the Nazi camp, and they show what goes on in a Nazi camp. The German guards and all the atrocities they commit to the Jews. So there is a scene in which there is some kind of a construction project. They're making the prisoners do some construction project, and the Nazi guard is very angry because they're not able to get the job done. And so he yells, kind of tell him like, you guys, you've been at it for a long time and no progress has been made. So one Jewish prisoner woman comes up to the guard and volunteers that she can take the lead and get the project done. She says, I have leadership qualities, I have an engineering degree, and I used to be project manager, and sir, if you give me the responsibility, I can take care of getting it done. He takes out his gun, points at her, bang, dead. What's the point? Because leadership, she mentioned, I'm a leader, threat, I got to kill her. You know what I'm saying? I want workers, I want people who just go running around and doing what I tell them, who can't think for themselves, who have no initiative, who have no oratory, no organization skills. But this person could be dangerous, because if I make her in charge of these people to get the work done, God knows what else she'll get done. They may revolt one day. So this idea is a very, the idea of leadership among those who are capturing and running and bossing over is a very dangerous idea. When there was a civil war in Pakistan in 1971 and Bangladesh was separated, General Yahya Khan in East Pakistan, he was the Pakistani general ruling over East Pakistan, and they had a crackdown to put martial law. The first thing they did is to round up all intellectuals. They rounded up all university professors, all writers, all journalists, all parliament people, people who had leadership, people who could think for themselves, and they genocided them. They put them in one place and killed all of them. Now you wonder, you see from their point of view, from the oppressor's point of view, the intellectual, the thinker, the leader is a very dangerous guy. So imagine if a community has been ruled over for many, many generations, then what they've done is weeded out this leadership, strategic thinking capacity, because it's dangerous, you see. So what happens when such a group of people are freed up one day is that they're lost for a while. They're looking for, they don't know, they don't have enough good leaders, and then that vacuum is filled by corrupt people. We have a lot of corrupt people who think that there's an opportunity, it's a good business to get into some leadership and make a lot of money or something. That also happens, abuse. So you'll find that former colonies, third world countries have this problem. Now somehow the Muslim world, even though they were ruled over, they were not entirely ruled over. There's always, if they ruled over one place, the other Muslim countries were free. So if they ruled over, Egypt, then Saudi Arabia was free. If they ruled over Saudi, somebody else was free. So there was never like a time when the entire Islamic world was ruled over, because Mughal Empire was the Muslim empire when other Muslim areas were ruled over. Yeah? Mughal Empire kept the Islamic thought, Islamic knowledge, Islamic learning, leadership training. They kept it alive. Chinese were never ruled over for a long period of time. They were for a short period of time, but not like for centuries. So they didn't lose the continuity. It's just a short period. So if you look at the Chinese civilization, they've not lost continuity. The Islamic civilization hasn't lost continuity. In the West certainly have ruled over others. We are the only major civilization that has been colonized for so long, and we've been trained to admire. There's something called the Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is when somebody is kidnapped and made a prisoner, and then the guard who's controlling you, looking after you, bossing over you, controlling you, he starts doing a few nice things for you. Today I'll beat you less. I'll give you some food today. Yeah? Okay, good, you're a good boy, so tomorrow no beating. So the fact that he's oppressing me less is a big favor. The person begins to fall in love. There are people who fall in love and even marry the kidnapper. There are many cases like that where the girl gets kidnapped and raped and oppressed in many ways, and then she begins to appreciate that he's really not that bad. He could have been even worse. So this is a psychological state of somebody who has been oppressed who starts loving the oppressor. And it can happen to whole civilization. And we've suffered the Stockholm Syndrome. And this is why when Westerners have to be just a little nice to us, and unconsciously there is that thing inside us which is craving for recognition and appreciation and admiration and being invited to sit at the table as an equal. And this deep-rooted inferiority complex is what is causing this problem. So, it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle. Any solution I give requires that people have been motivated. So to motivate people, motivate people, you need something, but then that something can only come if they're already motivated. So it's a vicious circle. It's a very difficult circle. So all I can do as a person is to break that vicious cycle for myself. I can say, and when I was 44, I decided to give up my business, give up my career, stop making money, spending 7 days a week doing this for the last 18 years. I'm now 61. So for 18 years, full time, 7 days a week, I have no job, no business, no source of income. I took early retirement and I can live on that. And all I do is this. And the reason I do this is, it is my sadhana. I'm not doing it as a favor to you. I'm not doing it as a favor to anybody else. I'm not looking for anything. I'm doing it because I believe in it and it is the right thing to do for my own satisfaction. So one day when I'm gone, I'll feel I lived the right life. Whether you benefited or not, I don't know. I hope you did. But even if you didn't, I tried. Now, what you need are people who have that kind of a vision and inspiration to do that, to do their best without wanting anything out of it. You need a few people like that. Now, in ancient times, society used to sponsor and support, that's what the Brahmins were. The society used to look after them. The guy doesn't have to go running around having to feed himself. The society would feed him and make sure he's looked after. So, if there is a critical mass of people who want this, then they have to sponsor some young people. And I can be a mentor and teacher if you provide the young people. I can give them work to do. I can give them a lot of work, starting with very simple, rudimentary work, then a little more difficult. In 2-3 years, I can train them to be pretty strong and good community leaders. So then that's your leadership training program. And you don't need a large number of people. If you could train 2-3 people in the next 2-3 years, then those people could take it further and train 50 people. So that's how I feel, we can break this with a very small number of high quality people who are willing to make the sacrifice. But they have to be willing to turn this into their life. Now, before you say, well, nobody is ever willing to do something selfless, I will tell you that there are people who become a purohit in a temple. It's not for big money, it's just because it's purohit. Some people become a Swami, they go and join Chinmaya Mission or Ramakrishna Mission. They're now going to drive around in Mercedes and BMWs and live in a big, nice pension. They're just going to live a very simple life. Now, so such people exist. But they are not in a place where they're going to be taught these kinds of issues. They're going to be taught some very, very abstract things and ritualistic things, but not practical things. So we need to take such people and put them on a different track, which is also more practical leadership.
So far, I really enjoy your topic and whatever you say. But this thing has been bothering me for all my life, growing up since I got some sense in my head. And maybe you might be able to help solve this problem. And I think this is included in our society. Why it is so difficult to get the East Indian from India, we all Indians, why we cannot get them to interact with the West Indian or the Caribbean people from the Caribbean community. And this is something that I have seen in this country since I've been here a long time. I don't know whether it's a language barrier or maybe as we don't know to speak Hindi, or that is. Because I remember when Lata Mangeshkar or Mohammed Rafi and all these guys came to the Caribbean, you see thousands of people just going to see these people because we all, from India, it's such a big thing that we all want to see them. But when you, in a land like this, you come here and you realize, well, in the Caribbean, we all born and grow up there with the same Indians that we born and grew up with our foreparents and parents. And when you come and you move to this country, you realize that you're interacting with the East Indians from India, we look alike. We just don't speak the language. So I don't know if the language is the one that divides us, or if they look at us of a different stature or something like that. And I think you probably observed that. It's very difficult. And I think, Ram, you should know. You've been here around. Ram is be a teacher back home, and he knows how does society play a big role in this thing.
No, that's a good point.
How could we change this in this type of part of the world? It's not easy to change because I've been here a long time, and I heard right here in this mandir here, right outside in the dude. I mean, they didn't realize who I am, so I was just standing and listening. And all I could have heard from this couple of gentlemen was talking, I think it was, this is a West Indian temple. I said, hi, did you see the sign up front? It marked Devi Mandir. Did you see Devi Mandir marked West Indian? So I tried to correct that. I said, Bhaiya, this is not a West Indian temple. This is a Devi Mandir. And this is in the eyes of these people. Why it is in the eyes? Why is it, what it is in their mind that they think?
I will explain.
I hope they don't think we are inferior or something. But we have to, this is a difficult barrier to break.
Yeah.
It will take centuries, but I don't know if it will break. But I just hope, I know Mahendraji, he's with us, and he's a chief nuclear engineer, chief guy. He's around the plant in Kingarten, and I'm very pleased to see him here.
Yeah, good. Can I answer now?
So I really appreciate, and
Good. No, I'll give you my perspective.
I might get some answers.
Yes. Okay. I really like when people raise very good, important, complex questions and difficult questions and embarrassing questions and awkward questions. We have to talk about all this. Very good. See, I will tell you, the Indian community from India is also divided vis-a-vis one state and another. So think of Caribbean as another state from the Indian point of view. It's like the UP guys will say those are Gujaratis, and the Gujarati will stick together and say those guys are Tamil people, like that. Now, to some extent, language is the criteria for that classification in the minds of people. Because, the Gujaratis do their dance and they have a Gujarati singer and they sing Gujarati music, and so somebody who's a Bengali may not quite understand it, and the Bengali will tell, we have read their great thinkers and they'll tell Bengali jokes, so a guy like me may not understand it. So to some extent that is the case. And so one thing you should feel is that you are not alone in that sense of isolation, because all the different regions of India feel that way also. But of course the difference is that these regions in India are so big, they have like 50 million, 80 million people, some of them, that they are so like a whole big nation, like as big as the entire country of France, You have my American friends, they don't understand that some of the states in India are bigger than most of the countries in the world. Yeah, so they are huge, and so they are satisfied, with their own sort of continuity. Now, so that's my explanation of what causes it. But what to do about it? I think language can change this a lot. I know Punjabis who are lived in Tamil Nadu and they speak Tamil, and they just mix nobody bothers that they're outsiders. The language makes a big difference. And I know people in Delhi who come from somewhere else and they walk into some gathering and they speak fluent Hindi or something like that, and nobody thinks twice. Really, no people don't think. Don't you notice that? He's from Tamil Nadu. So he's from Tamil Nadu.
I live in Delhi.
So you live in Delhi. So you walk around all these kind of gatherings because you just say, "Ha, bhai, kya hal hai," and all that stuff.
I am from UP and I live in Mumbai. I speak Marathi and I speak Gujarati. And
It's sort of like, I'll tell you from a Canadian reference point, if you lived in Quebec and you could speak French, you'll find that that particular ethnic gap kind of goes away. Because you'll know some of the same songs and you'll be able to tell them some joke and you'll be able to, the informal buzz and informal colloquialism you can catch on and that sort of thing. Now, I was interviewed by ATN yesterday, Asia TV network. And the host is a Guyanese guy. So he was doing it in reverse. He was having fun with Gulchar and he's saying, "Rajiv, this is not for you. You won't know a word what we're talking about." And he would say something. And he'd say, "Now, did you understand?" I said, "No, see, we have our own language." So this is true of people around the world. Now, what you have to do, because we're part of one civilization, unfortunately what has happened is, the Sanskrit background, which used to be the common language of learning, language of philosophy. So people were bilingual. They would know their Marathi, they know Sanskrit. They would know their Hindi, they would know Sanskrit. They would know their Tamil, they know Sanskrit. Great Sanskrit writers from Tamil Nadu who were Tamil speaking would write in Sanskrit. So there was a lingua franca, there was a kind of a common, language of discourse. And that has eroded. So that common highway on which all these cultures were interacting is not as there like it used to be. So what you can do, I would say, you should start Hindi classes for young people, like the Hindi USA. You should talk to this Devendra Singh in New Jersey, whom Gulcharan knows, and tell him, "We'll take your curriculum. You don't have to develop a new curriculum. We'll send one or two teachers and learn for a little while from your teachers, watch your schools, what they're doing, and we'll bring them back here and just get some grown-ups who know Hindi and who are willing to volunteer their time and learn the curriculum and start teaching. Maybe in 5 years you will have some very good results because you will have people who are bilingual, bicultural in that sense."
The same question goes back to what Sean was saying. We have all of that going on, but how do we get them to come? Maybe we have to hire a bus and go individual homes. This is the major problem, and this, what I go back thinking, like I was thinking while you were talking there, Hindu/Indians, like we take things for granted. I don't say West Indian and East Indian and whatever. I put it as Indians.
Mm-hmm.
We take things for granted. I see Indians from India, and they don't know as much as my religion as I do from the West. And I'm very, very proud of that.
Yes, very good.
Okay? But at the same time, I don't know the language that they do, right? This girl joined my car yesterday, and she was clapping and singing because she's an Indian. I know the song, but I don't feel the joy she's feeling, okay? Because even if we learn the language, we cannot understand it because it wasn't embedded in us that way,
As an adult, you may have the handicap, but the kids will not have the handicap. The kids of somebody from the Caribbean and somebody from India are equally confused. One good news is, from your point of view, is that the gap between the Indian people from India and the Indian people from the Caribbean is being closed in the next generation because they're equally confused.
I can accept.
Yeah. It's not a happy way to close the gap. You would like them to be equally learned and equally well informed. But people of my generation who are from India, the next generation of kids, and your next generation of kids, they're all Americanized, Canadianized, they got those accents, they don't know, none of them knows anything, don't bother.
That's why they accept anything.
So just like you may have a problem of transmission to the next generation, so all the 10 mandirs here in Canada and Toronto that are run by East Indians, their next generation got the same problem also. So the gap between East Indian and West Indian of our generation is not there in the next generation because they're all confused.
Yeah.
It is true.
They lost it.
They lost it. They lost it. So when a person whose parents came from Caribbean, who's born and raised in Canada, grows up, becomes college student, and when a person whose parents came from India and whose kids grown up here, born and raised here, go to college, these two will not see any difference. because they will just see we look like the same, and we talk about, yeah, parents are Hindus, but there's some weird things they do, and we don't really know why it's important to us, and I want to be a doctor, and you want to be something like that, and they're more into that world. Am I right?
Yeah.
So this is a one generation problem. After one generation, the problem is a common problem, but a far more serious problem.
Very, very.
That's a
I
very
get
serious
that.
problem. It means that we're getting rid of our gap because we're losing out. We're both losers. So if we are all losers, we don't have any disparity. That's a very serious problem.
Yeah,
To me, that's the worst problem.
Because then, I don't want to go to the mic again, because then we have to accept Indian/black Hindus, Indian/Chinese Hindus, because we have all these intermarriages. Because the children of nowadays days, they're so interacted that they do not understand the barrier. They don't see the difference there. They don't see him as one I shouldn't get married to. They see him as a human being. And that's a big problem for us, this generation, to accept him.
Well,
I think I'll go back.
well, the Hindu in me says that we do have something called dharmic universalism, like Western universalism. Like Islamic universalism says that Islam goes beyond ethnic boundaries. Anybody can be a Muslim. And the Western universalism, whether it practices or not, it says that this idea of liberal democracy, equality, all the Western values are individuality, they are all sort of universal. Now, I believe that we have a universalism in the Dharma which can be spread to any ethnic group. So Chinese can be Hindu and black can be Hindu, there's absolutely no problem. Now, unlike the evangelical faiths who have had a program of expanding and therefore educating others who are new converts, you know, an evangelical faith always has to have a program of initiation, indoctrinating new people. We have never had evangelism, so we don't know how to convert and how to educate somebody. So if somebody's kid married outsider, and even if this outsider says, I'd like to be a Hindu, you go to a temple, the guy says, I don't know what to do with you. I don't know what to do with you. In fact, there's so many people who told me, spouses of Hindus, who've told me that I really thought this is a cool religion. I really would like to be part of it. But I went to some Swami and he says, you're happy, you just say Om Jesus and you'll be happy. I used to, my wife and I took students from Princeton Day School where my kids went, a very nice school. We took them to India during spring break to Rishikesh, because they have a class called World Religions. So my foundation sponsored that we want to introduce Indian religions as part of that class because the material they had was not very good. So first grant I gave was that I will take 2 teachers. One was a religion teacher, one was a history teacher, world history teacher, and we'll spend 3 weeks around various spiritual sites in India to tell them let them assess whether it's a safe place, good place, what will happen if we bring students. These guys are very, very impressed. So following year, we started this travel to India program for people in the 11th or 12th grade, 10th, 11th, 12th grade could go. And we were taking like groups of 25, some chaperones who were parents and teachers and students. So they had a great time. These kids were transformed. Some of them came back and took up study of Hinduism. Some of them went back and did seva in the ashram in Rishikesh. One guy he got into Ivy League, but he decided to skip a year and go back and volunteer. So they were really moved and transformed by that experience. And then the head Swami of that ashram in Rishikesh, who had hosted them and who had really impressed these kids, came to New Jersey on a tour of USA. He's a very well-known guy, famous name. And so the school decided that all the people who went on that India program and stayed in his ashram, we'll all have a get-together and receive him and have a nice evening together. So we decided we'll host it in our house. So we invited this particular Swami and some of his followers who were there with him, and the whole school, all the students who had gone to India, their parents, teachers, were all invited for a big gala event in our house. And in this event, he gave a few talks, a few words and then people presented slides about their trip to India. Some people stood up and wrote from their diaries. Some people had put blogs. Some people had written essays. So different students stood up and said different things. It was a very beautiful event. Then one student stood up, and this is very interesting. One student stood up and said, Swamiji, I'd like to be initiated. Could you give me a... So Swami, if this happened to a Muslim, he would say, come see me, we have a program, good boy, we have a lot to do, we are, blah, blah, he would give them a nice speech. Or if this happened to a Christian, he would love it. So this guy, Swamiji, kept talking about, but we are all human beings, we are all one, this, that. He said, but Swamiji, I have decided I would like to be a Hindu, so can you help me, tell me how? So after he asked enough times, and the Swami couldn't escape, yeah? Look at how foolish. So then this kid says very point blank, Swamiji, what I need is to be initiated with a mantra. So he says, what's your name? He says, David. He says, David, just close your eyes and say, Om Jesus. That's your mantra. What an insult. Actually, the guy is a Jew, and Jesus is the last thing you want to tell him to be his mantra. I mean, it's so stupid. It is just completely ignorant. You know what I'm saying? So, our leaders don't even know how to welcome a spouse who comes and says, I would love to learn my husband or my wife, whatever the case may be, faith. You know, if you marry into a Christian family, or I know somebody who's dating a Jewish girl, and they've taken to the rabbi has given him huge presentations, lots to read, lot of history, put him in touch with other mixed couples, brought them into special sessions to make him feel comfortable, so we respect your religion and you become a Jew. They have a program. Every mosque has a program. Every mosque has somebody in charge of interfaith marriages, how to bring that other guy into Islam, how to make it easy for them, how to explain the differences to them, how to in public say, so-and-so has become a new Muslim, everybody will clap, and they'll all invite him to dinner, make sure he's welcome, he's feeling comfortable. So because this kind of expansionism is encouraged, they are told that you are scoring points with Allah if you go and get married to somebody and get them converted. And Christians are doing this. Ours is not only we don't have a positive program, we actually have a negative program. I mean, we have a negative program. So our problem, we have to be practical. You cannot, in this day and age of multiculturalism, expect that people are not going to intermarry. They're going to marry somebody they like, somebody they work with. And the question is, does your religion, does your faith cross ethnic boundaries, or is it ethnically boxed in? If it is ethnically boxed in, then we don't have a universal claim. We don't understand the nature of the divine in a universal sense. This is some kind of an ethnic God that we are talking about. It's a tribal God kind we're talking about. Ironically, philosophically, we have the universal philosophy, the universal thought. A lot of the religions that emerge in the desert, those are desert gods, tribal gods, that they universalized and expanded and through violence tried to make them universal. But philosophically, those are tribal gods. You see? So, this is a tragedy we have because of ignorance of our people. Now, this is not true that conversion can't happen. And all that, look at Adi Shankara converted all the Buddhists back to Hinduism. But nope. I mean, look at how many, prior to Islam and Christianity, there were many settlers from all kind of places coming to India. And they would all become Indianized and become Hindu. Yeah, they'd build a Shiva temple or build this, that. So many people would come and they would become, start practicing the local tradition. So there is no rule against it. It's simply laziness, tamas, ignorance, and narrow-mindedness for our leaders to not know how to convert people. And I really mean official conversion. Conversion means that, because a person who comes from a religion where they have identity cannot let go and be in a space where we are all the same, there's no need for identity. It doesn't last. They need that sense of belonging. They need someone holding them, a group holding them, that we are with you, we are yours, we are all together. So if I leave a kind of the scaffolding that holds a building together, that kind of scaffolding support, if I leave the scaffolding of certain identity that I have been born into, and now I'm willing to let go of that and join my spouse's tradition, I expect that they will create that sense of identity from their tradition's point of view and hold me and initiate me and give me an initiation, give me a name, give me a sense that I'm now one of them. And our people don't know how to do that. Prabhupada did it for ISKCON very successfully. Made them shave off their head and change different clothes and put on a different name and say now you are a sadhu in this tradition and doesn't matter where you were from, but now you are this tradition. So some people have done that. But a lot of our gurus are very confused on this matter.
I'm just going to start with, first, thank you very much for taking time to come here. Secondly, thank you to Devi Mandir, especially staff like Amarji here, who can take this thoughtful topic and bring you here. And the reason I come in here, because it was closer here than to go into Arya Samaj, because I understand you're going there as well. Secondly, I'm an engineer by trade. I could not miss another engineer doing so much research in a topic what we have, so I had to come and listen to you.
Thank you.
My question may address some of the issues Sean's raised. I may address the delta and the gaps we are seeing, what Bindaji talked about. To answer Bindaji's comment towards me, first thing, I'm totally honored that you mentioned that you see me here. My honest answer from the heart, and I think my wife shares with me, is the reason I come to this temple, because I got to know Amar Bindaji a long time ago before this temple existed. I did not know he's from Caribbean. I did not know he's from the United States. I did not know he was from Mars. I thought he is a beautiful, honest human being with Hindu background. I can learn a lot.
Good.
Since then, I still pay respect to him when I meet him. He may be my age, a little older, just because of these qualities. Secondly, I come here, I see the altar, so quiet, so peaceful, and I can spend some time and pay respect to my background, which is Hindu religion. Even when I go back, my credit goes to gentlemen like Bindaji who built this place for us people. So I thought I'd just honestly answer that question, okay? So my second topic is going to lead to a little question. I'm going to be very practical. I'm just about the same age. You probably brought up in Punjab, Delhi area. I'm
Delhi.
from Jalandhar. So our background is very similar. I grew up a down-to-earth Arya Samaji.
Me too.
I knew the Havan by heart. We used to do every Saturday. I was the Havan leader. I just came from India, went to my home, and I asked my brother, who's older to me, let's go to the Arya Samaj temples where our dad used to take and we used to pray. Because I had so much attachment to them. So I did go 1, 2, 3, 4 places. I almost cried. Apartment buildings, shops, not a sign of Arya Samaj. And my brother says that organization has totally disappeared. Okay, now this is India where I grew up. Never mind Whitby, Ajax, Toronto, Markham. Okay, so now I'll come back to the term Western universalization. After a few comments, very quickly, I'm going to ask you to help me and help the audience. I said I'm going to go right down to the earth, very practical. The reason we're speaking English here, not Hindi, not Sanskrit, not Punjabi, not Gujarati, is this term, what we're calling now is Western universalization. Now, go back to history. No point going back to Ravan time or Mahabharata. Let's start with Romans. Romans are sort of the start in the new world, what they call Western civilization or modernization or universalization. What was the key secret? As an engineer, my knowledge of history is 0.0001% of yours. With limited knowledge, their success based on 3, 4 things: organization, structure, military power. British then, I'm talking now 1600, 1700. British took the Roman model and they put the industry into it, they invented the electricity, they put the technology into it, and they even multiplied what the Romans had in structure, strategic, and military power. And the reason they defeated, only one reason the British defeated Napoleon was their naval military power. British England territory area total put together is less than UP and Punjab put together in India, and they ruled 120 countries from Europe to Australia. What does that come to? 4 things: organization, structure, total military power, and ruthless organization, and they did it, okay? I'm coming back to what our kids we are struggling with now. Then came the time, and the reason you and me are not speaking in Japanese or German language or serving them beer or coffee or tea is because of the military American strength. If it wasn't for them, you'd probably be serving beer to the Germans, and I'd probably be serving tea to the Japanese right here. They were so close to conquer Canada and the United States. Only 3 weeks that the Americans made the atomic bomb. If not, we could have been history. Different way, okay? So now comes the image. I just come from India. People are wearing the hats. Okay, go back. When I was a kid, Indira Gandhi and our current constitution and the prime minister did not allow free televisions. It's only been 20 years that India has a free television. They can access American. I'm saying the modern Western universalism is the image from America, which is the biggest power right now, okay? I was surprised to see younger generation. I could never believe, I could never see a lady in a sari or a skirt and smoking cigarette. Ladies wearing backward baseball hats. I won't comment on the mini skirts the girls are using because I was brought differently. I saw, just the day I was leaving Bangalore, article from the Canadian Management Institute that the formal dress for a female executive to go for an interview is a Western dress suit, not a sari. As soon as you go in a sari, you're already starting from a -5 points. You have to come up. I saw an advertisement says cream for men when they go to interview can make you look white. I'm coming down to this. The current image of what we call Western universalizations came from 3 things. When General Patton on a D-Day and Allied commanders Dwight Eisenhower went to see the president. He says, I don't need the prayer. I've done all that. I have all my staff ready. At 0700 honor, we're launching. This could be the end of the world. He said, I have 49 to 51 chance who's going to win. That's the Dwight Eisenhower became a president launching D-Day attack on Germany. He said, no more than that, 51 or 49. We could lose, so you better be ready to surrender to the Germans because they're going to get mad if we don't win. They're coming right here. Not England, they're going to attack us first. And he said, Mr. President, I have only one hope. Only one hope is our country is so big. We have so much material. We have so many people. I will outdo Hitler in military production. He will throw 1 tank and I will throw 200. His tanks are better, but I will throw 300, we will win. Okay, so what it comes to is, not that the Americans are white, not that they're taller than Indians, not that they speak English. The image they created is the organization, structure, efficiency, and military power. Russians launched Sputnik, they destroyed the Russians and went on the moon in less than 10 years. What does that say? So now Sean, my kids, my nephew's kids in India, when I went there, don't even want to speak to me in Hindi. I'm trying to speak to them in Hindi. They are speaking in English. It's a 9-year-old kid. It's a disgrace to speak in English because the American image says you must learn English. And even talk like this, talk in North Carolina with an accent. You're from the United States. So what I'm going to come back to the question is, we have Western universalization. I gave you the history, in my opinion, where it comes from. We have Vedas, we have Ramayana, we have Mahabharata, and we have structure of Hinduism. How do we, and what are the principles we can use to counteract this image of Western universalization which the materialism and military power has created? So I'll leave that.
Good,
that question.
good. Okay, thank you very much.
Well done.
Very good. Now, this is very good because he has really understood Western universalism very well. and summarized its origin and its history. And so now if you read the book, you'll find a lot of these things there discussed and more. It's easier for you to follow because he's giving you kind of an overview of what is Western Universalism, how it comes about, how it functions. Now what to do about it? First requirement, which is not sufficient but which is necessary, is we must understand what is the difference from Western Universalism that is worth protecting, that defines us in the first place. Which means we have to understand the differences explained in this book and be able to lobby or question our gurus who go around saying everything is same. Because if everything is same, it's a recipe for digestion. If you say everything is same, then why worry about all this complicated stuff? The other stuff is so simple, let's just go. If everything is same, why do you want to study all those scriptures, all those texts and all that heavy philosophy? If everything is same, then just go with the flow. The flow is that it's much easier if I'm just part of this Western Universalism. Why don't I join Western Universalism if everything is same? The argument I give in this book is why everything is not the same. And this the most important community that I must convert or influence, that's where you can help me, is our spiritual leaders, our gurus. And I'm trying to get appointments and interviews. I have a few of them on board. I was very well received by Chinmaya Mission in Washington DC area. I presented to about 1,000, 1,500 people, 3 days, 3 different talks I was invited to give. And the Swamiji there is very, very good and very helpful and totally supportive. Swami Dayanand Saraswati totally on board, so he called me to Annaikatti and Coimbatore, and we had great seminars. So those, the young people and the leaders in certain organizations like that are very much sure of what is distinct about us, so that it will probably transmit, at least to some extent, in their teachings. But that's a small drop in the bucket. I have not managed to get into the XY temple here, there, and there, at the level of the top, to say, bring in a program of learning and knowledge. Because you, the temples, are the kind of, to be very practical, you are the retail outlets. You are where our Sanskriti is being retailed. I am an R&D shop. I make some products, but I need retailers to retail it. So, you can make some big IT gadget somewhere. If Walmart and others like that don't carry it, then you can't distribute it. So I need distribution channel, and I am willing to go and learn and teach and all that, both in the universities and in the 3 channels I need. One is universities, one is media, which is very difficult to get. I go wherever I'm invited. AT invited me, I'm going. I'm hoping Dr. Dubey will organize something. He said he would. And wherever we are invited for media discussion, because we disseminate this knowledge, I'll go. But very difficult, because they have certain ideological parameters. However, the inexcusable distribution channel for not taking this seriously is our own gurus, because they are here for us. You can say that academic people are, they got their own biases, and you can say media are controlled by other people and all that. But what's the excuse for our own gurus and swamis not taking this up as a very serious issue? You see, too many of them are basically interested in the success of their own little organization. If their donations are coming, enough money is coming, enough, the programs they do, bringing enough contributions, why take on this extra responsibility? This is not a money maker, it's just more hassle. So the ideas about knowledge are not there to generate revenue. It is what our traditional temple in India, the Hindu temple, was the center of learning. It was not just ritual. They taught you yoga, they taught you dance, it was the music academy, it was where the philosophical debates occurred. They would teach you Sanskrit, they would teach you mathematics, they would teach you astronomy, there would be Jyotish people there. So the temple was a multifaceted, almost like humanities, almost like the university, the College of Humanities being taught there. So we've shrunk the scope of the temple to a very simple puja bhakti kind of role. So I think since we have the real estate, we have the footprint of hundreds of temples, thousands of temples all over North America. The big billions of dollars of investment to put this together has been done. So it's like we have the Walmarts, but they're not taking our product and putting it in their shelf. They're using all that shelf space for very limited product. That's not smart. So what we have to do is convince the temples that they have to have like a once a month speaker program and talk about these issues, talk about this kind of a matter. They have to sponsor such things. They have to sponsor, I mean, if 5 temples here got together, I could produce twice as many books because I can do the work, but at this age I need help, I need assistance, I need people to help me. And that, so I would say the solution, most high leverage solution, is to get our own spiritual leaders and organizations on our side on this topic and tell them that you please cannot ignore this and just live in some isolated issue and ignore this. Some temples don't even want to have a talk on this. They're afraid. Some temples are. They're saying, why should I rock the boat? I'm getting enough money. I got no problem. Maybe it's your problem. Maybe somebody else having this problem. But I'm living very well. I'm okay. So, this is a kind of escapism. Escapism from the responsibility. Because with leadership comes responsibility. With responsibility comes some sacrifice, some pain and suffering. You've got to stick your neck out, take some risks. You've got to do that. That's part of the territory of being a leader. But so that's where I need everybody's help, is to crack these organizations. Now we have a good team. Gulcharan is here. We have wonderful other people who are helping. More can join and get into more such groups. And I don't mind coming whenever there's a critical mass of such places and conduct workshops, conduct talks, and I would love to do that. And with that, I think we will close. Thank you very much for listening. It's been wonderful.
I want to ask a question. Come in front, and it makes it everything easier. The camera will see you too. So,
my question is very simple. When you said that Hindus and Indians, we are losing our religion, our culture, and it's true. I've noticed that whenever I'm with my friends, my Indian friends, we never speak in Hindi or Gujarati, in our mother tongue. It's always in English. But I've noticed that other Chinese people, they've always speak in their language, Cantonese or Mandarin. But why are we different? We are one of the oldest religions. Shouldn't we be better at keeping our religion?
Okay. What's your name?
Maharshi.
Wonderful. Wonderful to meet you, and a great question you asked. Okay. So, his question is, why are people of our background losing the language and getting into Western universalism, what I call Western universalism through English, whereas Chinese are sticking to their language. In China also they've made English compulsory, but as a second language, not forgetting Mandarin. Everybody must learn Mandarin first, up to a certain age. And when you are established in that language as your mother tongue, then after a certain grade in school, you start learning English as a second language. But all the subjects you are studying, history and geography and this and that, all these subjects you're studying in Mandarin. So that's your first language. And in India, all the local languages, the native languages are being phased out, in the sense that newspapers and magazines are becoming less English, spreading. A lot of schools in other languages, Indian languages, are being shut down, replaced with English because there are more jobs, better marriage prospects, better job prospects. People feel they become upper class, if they know better English. I remember when I go to my mother's home in Delhi, I do that 3-4 times a year. The driver, my mother's driver, I look at the kids and say, Namaste. So the driver tells the kids, Saab ko, good morning bolo. You say good morning to them. That's the attitude. So there's a kind of a complex that, if I'm not, this guy is English speaking, he's well-to-do, so I'll also learn English, be like him, this kind of it. And the role models on television and media are like that also. Hardly ever an Indian top political leader makes a speech in the UN or United Nations or United States or Europe in Hindi. They all go out and talk in English. Now, this is a colonial reason. The colonial, colonization of India removed the local languages and installed English and brought Indians into the civil service. They could get jobs better. They could be in the army. They could be like the Englishman, play their games and join the English club and wear English clothes and try to be as white and pretend to be somebody they're not. So there's a lot of anxiety in the Indian people. A lot of complexes have come as a result of many generations of that. Chinese didn't get colonized. They got colonized, but only for a short period of time. And never did the colonization go very deep and change their whole system. So they remained in their system. So I guess that's the reason. That's the reason for this. And the price we are paying is confusion, confused people. The only pursuit they have is to climb up the ladder of becoming more westernized. So that's the problem. More questions, please?
Okay, as we were on the topic of language, and Hindi specifically, I just want to know, you were talking more so, you said that things like not wearing your shoes or eating with your hand is not as important. So is speaking Hindi or language in general, isn't it just like that? Or is there some deeper aspect to speaking Hindi?
Very good point. Firstly, I didn't say that other customs are unimportant. What I said is that those other customs they do not necessarily include in the custom a deep philosophical significance. A lot of people, eat with their hands, and it's basic hygiene. It's like, you can learn to play tennis. That's not necessarily of a particular civilization. Yeah. So those are basic hygiene and good health. Those kind of things are fairly standard. But language contains the experience of thousands of years of a culture contained in language. So another language may not have the word yoga in it. They don't have a word for yoga because they didn't have that experience. And you can't translate yoga as exercise or prayer or gymnastics or something of that kind, because what it means is just yoga only, and there is no word for it in English. Similarly, you take a word like Shakti. You don't have another word like that in the English language. So language has evolved over time to represent experiences that people had. And in another part of the world, they did not have that experience necessarily. So if I say, apple, many people have had apple, they got a name for it. It's the same thing, same object and same experience. But when I say yoga, that's not a standard thing that everybody has had. So I think this is the reason language is a much more substantial distinction. The people who know the language can read poetry, read literature, read philosophy, read history that is original, and not depend on the translations that may be distorted. So you feel confident and comfortable that way. Language is also important because if somebody wants to argue about my culture, I will tell him that the word for this, somebody wants to say, okay, you got a problem in caste. First thing I'll tell him is there's no word like caste in our language. It's an English word. It's a Portuguese word. There's no word caste in Sanskrit. So we have jati and we have varna. So let's talk about that. Half the time that guy doesn't know what to say because he doesn't even know what it means. So now the debate has shifted to my terms. I control the debate because I know the terminology in which the debate has to happen. So I want to make clear that I would prefer if somebody knew a full language, but if they don't know the full language, they should learn certain words. They should learn certain words, and in this book, Being Different, I introduce about 20 plus some words, 20 odd words, which don't have a translation in English, proper translation. People should read certain words in order to, even if you're speaking in English, then those words you use from Sanskrit only, just those words. You make them part of your English vocabulary. That way, you don't have to. You can be a fluent English-speaking person, but you use those words from our language. Your name?
Ananta.
Ananta.
You talked about like the way that we dress or stuff being superficial and language having that deeper meaning, right? Apart from language, what are other things that hold that deeper difference?
Excellent. See, now she's asking me good questions, because chapter 5 of this book, Being Different, is about non-translatability of language words. Certain words are non-translatable. And so the first point I made about difference is that. The other chapters are about other kinds of differences that are very important. So one of the very important differences is the philosophical difference about the nature of the self. Who am I? Who am I in the Dharma traditions? Is the nature of the self is such that I do not depend on history. I do not depend on a historical prophet. I do not depend. It's nice to have a knowledge of a historical prophet for inspiration, but I do not depend for my higher truth, because I have the capacity to self-realize. I have the capacity to have a higher state of consciousness, a enlightened experience of my own, and all human beings have that. So because all human beings have a built-in capacity to experience something beyond something higher directly, without any institution or church or without any historical person being involved, this means we are more interested in our own inner journey. So this is why Indians have a lot of techniques for meditation and yoga and various techniques to mantras, ways of experiencing a higher state. The Abrahamic religions, which are Judaism, Christianity and Islam, depend on a particular historical event that happened long ago, thousands of miles away, to somebody, and that's the final word, and that's the ultimate knowledge. It can never be replaced. You can never have that same experience. A Christian won't believe that he could ever have the Jesus experience, what Jesus experienced directly. A Jew would never be able to say that he can have the same direct contact and the direct experience of Moses. A Muslim would never agree that it is possible for anybody to have the same experience that Muhammad had. But in our tradition, what the rishis experienced, and they wrote Vedas, the Vedas came out of that experience. Every human being has that potential. And every once in a while, some great person comes along who has that experience and who can validate it and teach it again. So we are more interested in pursuing that path of inner experience for ourselves. And this means we are less subjugated to obey some kind of external, institutional authority. We are less, what I call less history-centric. We're not so dependent on history. The Abrahamic traditions are extremely dependent on history. So the problem with dependence on history is that the wars which are going on over some idea of history can never be solved. Because if you have one idea of history which is necessary and you are fixated and you cannot be flexible, then those who disagree with it and have a different idea, you can't get along with them, you have to fight them. So the reason there's a fight between Islam and Christianity is because the historicity that is claimed in Christianity cannot be accepted in Islam, and the historicity which is claimed in Islam cannot be accepted in Christianity. Superficially they can accept it. Muslims can say Jesus is a great prophet, but they cannot say he's son of God. They cannot believe that. Yeah? Because if they were to accept he's son of God, then it violates their own history. And Christians can say, well, maybe there are some great things written in the Quran and Muhammad was a great man, but they cannot accept that he is the perfect prophet and final prophet because it violates their own New Testament. So we don't have these problems. And therefore we are more flexible and more open and more able to respect others. We can practice respect for others genuinely, not lip service. Whereas these Abrahamic traditions, what they can offer you is tolerance. Tolerance. We tolerate you. They can't offer you real respect. Now, how many of you think that tolerance is something you would like to be, how many of you would like to be tolerated? Raise your hand. Nobody. How many of you would like to be respected? Okay, so you get the point. Imagine in class somebody says, I'll tolerate you to sit next to me. And you'll say, what the heck, what's wrong with me? Why do you have to tolerate me? Nothing wrong with me. To be told I'll tolerate you is like an insult, right? It's an insult. Right? It's an insult. I mean, if in your home your one family member says, I'll just tolerate you at the dining table, it's kind of rude. But you say, I respect you, that's different, whole different meaning. Now you may think this is a very semantic, just simple language issue. It's not. Believe me, for 20 years, I have used this idea of asking for mutual respect rather than tolerance, and they have a very difficult time agreeing. Very difficult time agreeing. So whenever you are having an interfaith conversation and people say, oh, we agree to tolerate each other, I want you as Hindus to raise your hand and say, no, let's remove the word tolerance and we'll put the word mutual respect in any resolution, in any declaration, in anything that the people are saying. You should say, I don't like the word tolerance, it's rude, tolerance is not good enough, this is 21st century, we should respect each other. Now the reason they have a hard time, can anybody tell me, raise your hand if you can, why do certain religions which claim exclusivity for themselves have a hard time doing mutual respect, offering mutual respect? Can anybody tell me? They can offer tolerance, right? I mean, religious tolerance is talked about by everybody. We tolerate you. So why not mutual respect? Can you think of a reason? If I respect you, if I respect you, I must consider you to be authentic and valid and worthy, right? So I cannot say you are false and I am true. I am the only true one and you guys are false. Then I can't respect you. Correct? Correct? Because if I think I am the only true one, I am the only idea of truth, I am the only one with truth, and all of you are false, no good, maybe evil, maybe sinners, maybe going to hell, something like that. If I have this view, I can't respect that, correct? I can't respect that. But I can tolerate it. Am I correct? I can tolerate those who are no good, those who think are below me, inferior to me. I can tolerate it. I put up with it. But I can't respect it. So whenever somebody offers you tolerance, one thing I want you to learn today is, you should say, no, I don't think tolerance is a good idea. We want mutual respect. We deserve mutual respect. I offer you respect, but you must offer me respect. How many of you raise your hand now understand the difference between tolerance and mutual respect? Okay, quite a few of you. So that's.
Would you tolerate more questions?
I would respect them. Now, somebody asked me, and you should understand because there are always trick questions that people come up with. So somebody asked me, then you'll have to respect Bin Laden and Hitler. Yeah? So how can you respect everybody? And I said, mutual cannot be dropped from the phrase mutual respect, which means I would respect Bin Laden if he also respects mutually, if he respects others. He cannot respect others, will not respect others, because he believes that only his way is correct and all others he has to kill and fight and all that. And therefore, because he refuses to respect others, therefore he will not get my respect. So my position of mutual respect works such that I will not respect somebody who does not practice respect for others, because it is mutual respect. You see what I'm saying? It is not unilateral, unconditional respect. It is not that I'll respect everybody no matter what, no matter how lousy they are, how criminal they are. No. I practice mutual respect, which means the other person must also practice that respect for others. So, all kinds of very horrible people would not be qualified, not because I'm not offering mutual respect, but because they're not able to accept that idea of mutual respect. So this is one point I want you to take with you. It's a very simple point, it looks like very trivial, but believe me, if you were to read in this book, the first chapter is on this difference, the idea of difference with respect and so on, and I give many stories. Just read that 25-page, read it 2-3 times, understand this idea of mutual respect and why it's different from tolerance. Start putting it into your life, and you will find that people will be quite surprised that you have a very strong point. You really understand something which they never thought of. So many people, so many Westerners, so many Muslims, friends, tell me, look, we never thought of it that way. We never knew that. We all our lives we've been going around tolerating people. And now for the first time we understand what a wrong thing it is. But you see, after they realize it, they also get cornered. They can't change easily because their books, their text does not allow them to respect others. There are others are called infidels, kafirs, heathens, and you can't respect them. You can't. You can tolerate them, but you can't respect them. So you will also find people who will try to pull a fast one on you and pretend, oh yeah, I'll respect you. Then you have to tell him what that means. You have to say things like, okay, we have deities. Do you respect those deities? We have, God can be worshipped as feminine, goddess. Do you respect goddess? Because they don't have goddess. And they don't think it's valid for anyone to have goddess. What's your name?
My name is Samantha. At the beginning of the talk, you talked about ways to preserve culture. You said language was very deep as opposed to taking off your shoes is not as deep. What are some other ways you believe can be used to preserve culture?
So I gave a second way, which is mutual respect rather than tolerance. That's a philosophical difference. It's a huge philosophical difference. So what I'm explaining in this book is certain ideas, certain principles, like the principle that myself I am originally divine. I have a divinity born in me. I'm a manifestation of divinity, is not acceptable by the other Abrahamic religions. It's not possible. So if you hang on to those things, they cannot digest those things because they will reject them. So I propose identity through those differences which are not digestible by the other. But bare feet is digestible by all of them. Everybody can go bare feet, and everybody can eat with their hands, and everybody can wear certain clothes. But they're not willing to accept and respect the idea that every human being is inherently divine, because they have the concept of being original sinner. Everybody is born sinner. So if you're born sinner, that's completely the opposite of being born divine. So I'm explaining differences which are not trivial that people from the other cultures can accept, but so deep and profound that they simply cannot accept them. To me, what is distinct and long-term and robust long-term are things that the others will just not find, they will not be able to go with that. And that once I've identified that, I know that those are the important things I should hang on to. Yeah? And so even though I hang on to them, and even though others cannot accept them, I'm willing to respect those faiths even though they are different. But I want them to respect me in return. So we have no injunction from God or teaching or anything which says that you should go and convert or go after other people and change them and by hook or crook, pressurize them and tell them they're wrong. We have no requirement to fix other people. Our mandate is to work on ourselves. We have to work on ourselves. But these other religions have a mandate to go fix everybody else. Hence the violence in the world, hence the tension and conflict in the world. So a resource is language. Another resource is the notion, the principles like the nature of the self as divine and not original sinner. Another notion is the idea of mutual respect and not tolerance. Another notion is that we're not dependent on some historical event because we all have that potential in us. We have that, the potential of our great beings that in our past. We all have that same potential in us. So we study about them just to get inspired, not because that happened only once and will never happen again. You see. So in science, you accept truths which are provable, which can be validated again by someone else, correct? You cannot accept something which one guy claimed and nobody can ever have that same experience. You can't do that. If I tell you that in my laboratory I experienced this, but none of you can ever experience that same thing in your laboratory, it's not verifiable, and science will never accept that. Because if I claim something in my laboratory, then many people will have to be able to get that same result in their laboratory. That's how science works. So our tradition says that if a certain rishi, a certain very advanced being in the past experienced something in a high state of meditation, very profound insight, then us, all of us, have that same potential. Of course, we may have to work really hard and achieve that same state. A lot of discipline, lot of training, lot of meditation has to be done to achieve that same state. But we are able to do that if we try. So that's a scientific claim because people can verify it for themselves. But another faith which says that once upon a time there was a God came and this is what Jesus heard, but no other person can ever have that again. Science should not accept that because it is not reproducible, it is not verifiable, it is unique, one of a kind that will never happen again. And in science you don't have those kind of, you cannot rely upon such an event as an axiom. You cannot axiomatize such an event. Yeah. So if you are of a scientific mind, you should be saying, okay, what's the empirical? Does Dharma have an empirical foundation? And the answer is yes. In this book, I explain a lot of things which yogis experience, and they teach you and tell you can experience it too. So it's not that I have this only and you can never have it. You can have the same thing. So in the Abrahamic religions, they're not willing to make claims which are such that you can have the same experience as Jesus had, or Muhammad had, or Moses had. You see? So there is a radical difference, and if you understand these principles, they are not a short conversation job. You have to invest to understand these things. Once you understand them, you will know how to move a conversation in a certain direction that you are having with people of other faiths, and then you are on a more solid ground to have these arguments.
Science says that plants are living, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Hinduism says that we should not eat meat, but we eat plants.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't that now contradict the science aspect of that?
Hinduism, you see, you must understand, it's a very profound question. Dharma and adharma, which is wrongful action, and dharma is the righteous action. First you must understand that according to Hinduism, the whole cosmos is God's manifestation. God has transformed himself into the cosmos. God is not outside the cosmos, God is both outside the cosmos and inside the cosmos, everywhere, all pervading, and everything, the microphone, the chair, the ant, not just living things but non-living things also. Matter, electron, an electron is not a separate thing with its own existence, it is God that has turned itself into each and every little particle. Yeah? Nothing, the analogy given is like there's an ocean and there are billions of waves, little teeny waves, and each wave comes, lives for a little while, goes away. But the wave does not have a separate existence from the ocean. You cannot take a wave and click and drag it out of the ocean. The wave is the ocean's own form. Ocean modified into this wave, that wave, that wave, that wave. Yeah? So the ocean is modifying itself into billions of waves at any moment in time. And some waves are coming, some waves are going, some waves are moving. So God, in our case Brahman, is becoming trillions and trillions of different entities at every moment in time. Every entity is in fact nothing but that. Every single thing that exists is nothing but that. And these entities, therefore, are nothing but forms of God. And so they don't have a separate existence. You cannot say an electron exists by itself independently of anything else in the world and independently of God, because it does not have a, you cannot imagine a wave having an existence if there's no ocean. It is the ocean's form. So once you understand this principle, then the interesting thing is that not only plants are God's form and animals are God's form, but even dust and even bacteria and even rock and even Bin Laden is God's form. Even the thief is God's form. That's true. So all the forms are God's forms, but these forms occupy the whole spectrum of existence, from good and bad, or the whole spectrum of existence. And from exceedingly unconscious like an electron or rock to little modest, some kind of life sensation like plants have, to little more like ants, to little more like mammals and man. So there's a whole spectrum of consciousness from unconscious to fully conscious and so on. And there's a whole spectrum of kind of creature, kind of person, kind of being it is. Yeah? So the Hindu cosmology is very vast and very fascinating, and I'm also in this book explaining this in a summarized, brief way. You should take a look at that. Now, what is righteous for human beings to eat is a question of what are the available choices and what's the least harm I can do. So the principle is least harming, not that I cannot eat a living thing, but what's the least harm I can do. Yeah? So if there's two choices, I pick the one with less harm over the one with more harm among the choices. So when a tiger eats a deer, it's not violating Dharma, because its metabolism, its biochemistry, the way its DNA is built, it cannot live as a vegetarian. It cannot. And the tiger's righteous Dharma is that it eats meat. That is absolutely righteous you don't say that the tiger is doing some bad thing by eating meat, because that is what the tiger is designed to do. When a snake swallows a little mouse, swallows it up and eats it, that is the snake's Dharma. That's the only way a snake can survive. He cannot eat carrot juice. He cannot do that. So when the volcano erupts and lots of creatures die, or when asteroid hits and dinosaurs die, or when there's an earthquake or a tsunami and a lot of destruction is killed, destruction happens, it is not that those entities that seem to be doing all these things are doing something evil or immoral or dharmic or negative. The nature has built-in destruction, built-in dissolution, built-in death, so birth, sustenance and dissolution are all part of the nature of this cosmos. Yeah? And the creatures that need to live off of other entities are part of this nature, part of the way the cosmos is built. Now, our Dharma is to understand our circumstances and make the right choices for minimizing harm to anyone. That is our Dharma. So there's nothing unscientific about eating plants. There's nothing unscientific about having to cause harm when it is less than the harm from other choices. So you kill Bin Laden, you have harmed him, right? But you've harmed him to save the harms on 20,000 people if he were alive and allowed to do that. So you have actually taken the path of the minimum harm that you have to do in order to save bigger harm. You see? This is why Arjun in the Gita is asked to go and kill those guys, because they are like the Bin Laden of that time. This is why somebody has to go and fight Hitler. Why in Ramayana Ravan has to be killed. So it's because, see, people often misinterpret the word ahimsa. They say non-violence. And Gandhi practiced ahimsa. Actually it means minimization of harming. Firstly, it's not just violence in the physical sense. Ahimsa also applies to harming somebody's culture, reputation, It's not just physical, it could be emotional. That's also, harm. And to be ahimsa, you may have to kill as part of being ahimsa, because not doing it might cause more damage. You see? So, responsible choice under Dharma involves taking life of something or other, could be a plant at times.